Great. Thank you. Hi. Grazie. Grazie. Okay, I informed that our we're hooked up by Zoom, which I see with Joanne. Got our screen working for presentations. I think we can call the December meeting in our regular commission order at 7:03 p.m. And I will note that all organizations are present in time for this month. And then we have with us and staff and commission. I'm sorry, I'm from Tony, so Borough Engineer tonight.
Yeah, I'm Tony.
Tony, nice to meet you. And then we have two members of the audience here who are applicants for the items on our agenda tonight. And is there anyone, someone is waiting in the room? Okay, I'll slide the things. We kind of walk through the room. On my understanding is really hit the move button up there at the side screen.
Where's the waiting room now?
So, can't go on board. Okay. Folks, I have a challenge now. The agenda's not that long. You think we can beat our everything?
So worthy.
Let's do all right, so we'll start with announcements and updates. I do have a few things to announce. Tonight, most importantly, I have to announce that our esteemed colleague, Jimmy Cornwell, has tendered his resignation from the planning commission, effective at the end of January's meeting. Jim has been on the planning commission for 18 years, 11 years as chair, and at least 5 years as wingman, right? It's not an official title, but Jim has been a great counsel to me. We will properly acknowledge your service and our appreciation next month in January, but I wanted to acknowledge that now and let everyone know. Thank you. I won't be the first and not the last to thank you for your great service to the borough and your and how I personally value so much your advice.
Thank you.
Next month we'll have a recitation of great accomplishments that occurred in the last
I want cake.
Cake, who's on the cake?
2 votes for cake.
Who's on the cake? Secondly, I would like to acknowledge, I'm going to start reporting so the public knows when we receive right to know requests. We received 2 right to know requests in the last month. One is a request for all communications, including but not limited to emails and texts and written communications dated June 1st, 2024 to present, regarding 2201 City Line Avenue, the Borough Council, the Planning Commission, and the Montgomery Planning Commission. The second was a request for all communication, including but not limited to emails, documented notes, text messages, and phone calls dated September 1st, September 2024 to present, regarding proposed or future zoning amendments, code modifications, and proposed developments in the borough. The Borough Council, Planning Commission, Montgomery County Planning Commission. I did protest this, and it was declared to be overbroad and rejected by the solicitor. At which point then we received a third request clarifying the second one. All communication, emails, phone calls, text messages between any member of the Planning Commission, Borough Council to and from Penrose Development and the Walters Group as it relates to housing development code with zoning modifications within Northern Borough. So what I'd like to do is remind planning commissioners, Montgomery County Planning Commission, that if you haven't already, please contact Alan Zardo, the borough office, with any materials that fall into those requests. I've also requested a briefing from the borough solicitor about the right to know process, what the law says, what we're required to do, what our obligations are, so that we all understand that going forward. And the borough will provide that, but they would like to wait until the new borough manager is in place next month, and maybe it'll be better for that. Which brings me to the next item, to announce our new borough managers. If you haven't heard already, this is a trivia question. Who knows the name Maggie Dobbs? Maggie Dobbs, the author of our comprehensive plan, Narberth, will be the new borough manager for Narberth. So Maggie worked very hard on our behalf. I think we all worked very well with her. And this is not a common occurrence for our staff, but I'm personally very thrilled to know she'll be joining the team. Because I think she really understands what we do. She understands our priorities. She understands our processes. And I'm hopeful. Because of that, she'll always at least lend us an ear. So when she arrives, I hope we'll all welcome her and encourage, do what we can, get off on a great foot, and encourage close collaboration. Maggie Dobbs, we're all thrilled with that one. The next announcement is, I did want to, I've gotten a couple of email and other queries about 36 North Narberth Avenue, the little gym. So I'd like to give a report on that, but I'd like to wait for the end of the meeting until we have to get through our other business, because there might be discussion. I don't want to hold our other items up for that. So that is my report. It makes up for all the months when I didn't have a report. Is there anything from Montgomery County Planning Commission that you'd like to report? Next on the agenda, we have 2 months worth of minutes to approve. You'll remember the October 7th meeting last month, so we didn't really have time to review. In contrast, the November 4th minutes came in minutes after the November 4th meeting. I do not honestly know how that happened, but we have them both. And so let's tackle the October 7th minutes first. Does anyone have any comments, corrections, questions on the minutes as presented by our secretary? The motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented by Jennifer? Any opposed? Okay. Let's move on to the November minutes. Does anyone have any comments, questions, clarifications on the minutes as presented by the secretary? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve? Move on second. You can second it. Okay. So moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented? All right. Any opposed? Okay. Jennifer, will you send those over to the borough office? Okay. Because Alan's going to be asking. He always asks the day after the meeting. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your work on getting those minutes. It was especially valuable last month because there were things we discussed that we kind of needed to play into a letter to council. And so it's very valuable to have that. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question about the minutes? Because this is the first time I've seen the dictation on the Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Is that available as a written document?
I don't know. I don't know, but this may be a good time. Jennifer, I know you have ideas about how to approach the minutes in the future now that we have all this documentation. Would you like to speak to that for a second?
With the video, and if we're able to download a dictation on the meetings, then I wondered if compiling the two plus just an outline summary of the meeting would be a more comprehensive way of providing a summary. I think some meetings warrant more comprehensive notes, like last meeting there were topics that required an understanding of everyone's thoughts and opinions on it, but other meetings are shorter. And if we have the recordings to go back to if there's questions, I just wondered if all of the minutes needed to be as comprehensive.
Not particularly,
Not at all.
recording of it.
I would say it's helpful if we can definitely get a written dictation, like transcription downloaded from each meeting, where we could have
Bullet points then.
the video plus a complete transcription of the meeting. I have not seen what this transcription would look like, so that's the other component of
The
it.
main issue is sometimes the speakers get too
Muddled, yeah.
Well, I will say I agree with you. I've been the outlier in this topic. I've always insisted on thorough minutes because we haven't had those records in the past. What we've had is someone's notes. And I found it to be very important and often useful to be able to go back, and particularly when we talk about development applications, to reflect. Case in point, Michael Baldini, council member, called me the other day and asked me a very small, specific question about development at 650 Montgomery. Why did you decide that? And I said, go back and read it. It's in there. So apparently someone questioned why something's being done some way. He wanted to understand the history of our decision making. So it's useful to have that. But now that we have the video, we have the transcript, we don't have to have it.
Yeah, I think it could be scaled back a little bit. I think the meeting minutes, especially Michael's, and then I was trying to kind of keep up with his rhythm, included at sometimes like verbatim what people were stating. And I think it could just be summary of the discussion that took place. So still more detailed than just a slightly elaborated agenda, but less detailed than each person's individual perspective.
I trust you will figure out the way down. So I think we can look forward to more efficiency there. So thank you for thinking that through. The last item on announcements and updates is our proposed, this is 2024 meeting dates on this thing here, but I meant 2025 meeting dates. So we circulated some dates last month. I found one error, so I fixed it. And we clarified that the meeting in September, which is always conflict with Labor Day, could be Monday, September 8th, rather than Tuesday the 2nd. The HARB is willing to move its meeting that month, and so those dates have been revised. Monday, January 6th, we get our first meeting, and then all the rest would be on first Mondays, it turns out. There's no conflicts calendar-wise. And then September 8th instead of September 1st, with no meeting proposed in August. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about that, or can we submit that to the borough? The goal is to submit it to the borough office, and the dates can be advertised along with all the other meeting dates.
Okay, isn't it traditional to schedule the August meeting and then cancel it, or no?
I think I can go either way on that personally, but I like setting a stake in the ground early on.
Okay.
That way, if there's always a possibility to have
Just be advertised in
meeting.
advance. Yeah.
But I think there's some folks, like me, who like to plan their summer vacations well in advance and would like the comfort of knowing there probably won't be a meeting unless there's an emergency. So does anyone object to that idea, or did you prefer to schedule an August meeting? So I will submit the dates as proposed to Alan so that he can advertise them along with everything else. So that's our housekeeping. So we move on to land use and subdivision, 202 Dudley. We welcome you both back to the Planning Commission. Today we hope you can give us an overview of what you'd like to do with this project. We only recently received the review letters, particularly from the zoning officer and NCPC, so we might spend a little more time letting them explain their evaluation of the proposal. And then we'll have our normal conversation and recommendation. So, Chris, we'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Yawn. I'm the civil engineer for this project. Vince Spizzato is here. He's the owner of Marley Real Estate Holdings. And so if we're able to put it on the screen, that might be better for all. If not, I have a paper.
Which file do you want? The subdivision plan?
Yes, please.
Is it possible to get it up on the other side as well?
Having some technical
No.
difficulties.
Sorry. We can, it's either or.
Never, they don't. If you tried to design it that way, you could.
Yeah.
I don't mind going to page 3. So this is the vicinity map for 202 Dudley.
Sorry, let me share this.
This is the vicinity map for 202 Dudley. Dudley runs north to south on this plan. This is Windsor Avenue going left to right. There is an existing twin building right here on the corner, and the half of the twin on the north side is what is 202 Dudley. They also own this, I'm going to call it open space of land that has right now an in-ground pool. There's some other driveway area. Those areas that are shown in red are shown to be removed. So that's what's there now. You can see the twin on the corner is, has space here to Windsor Avenue. This one has more space off to the side, which is really enough for another single-family home. And that is what the proposal is for today, if you don't mind switching back to, actually sheet 4, if you don't mind. Shows the new single-family home. There is a new driveway with a detached garage in the back. The existing twin, the driveway will be adjusted some. That's just a parking space in the back there. It is in the third lot layer as required. We meet the bulk zoning requirements for the lot. For parking spaces, we do have the lot width to get credit for a parking space on the street. However, we are providing off-street parking for that. We have stormwater management design that's in the rear of the new lot. It's underground stormwater. It collects basically all of the new roof area and the majority of the driveway area, basically from the front of the house where the house meets the porch. From the porch to the street, drains out to the street. Everything else to the back drains to an inlet and then is piped to the underground stormwater management system that provides the rate and volume control. That's what we have proposed. Quickly, we just show some street trees and some other plantings for the replacement trees. We did receive a review letter from Canone's office, which I could go over comment by comment or just no review. I did not see the review letter from either the zoning officer or the county, I don't believe. So as you said, it might be good for them to review their piece. You copy the letter?
It's a draft, so it's not official.
It is the draft letter. And I will give you a copy.
Okay. I mean, mine's short, so.
Okay. And I don't think there's a problem.
I'll just take it from there at the end of the meeting. We'll send out the final one.
Flagging the notes, he believes, given this noting there's one special exception required.
Except for the garage in the rear.
Yeah.
So it.
Well, let's get to that one.
Okay.
I just want to flag that because. Okay, so before we have commissioner questions, since the letters came in late, I will ask Kevin and Tim to give us any most important, any of the comments you made, the ones that are most important that you think are worth bringing your attention in this meeting. Kevin, is Kevin online?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Kevin. Good evening. Would you mind reviewing the highlights of your review?
Yeah, this should be. Basically, the first 8 comments were dimensional issues for Chris's plan that is probably clean up the next day or two. And then number 9 is basically some steps that are required for the front facing detached garage in the third lot layer. Sorry, I have a lot there.
When you say dimensional issues, my recollection is it was just sort of like arithmetic errors, right?
Right. Yeah, no good issues.
But when those errors are resolved, it will be fully compliant with all of the metrics of the code, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there's just sort of like a housekeeping, if I'm understanding correctly. And then special exceptions. So Did you want to make a comment about that, Chris?
Not other than my recollection was we needed it, but when I looked at, and when I read the code, it looked like we needed it, but I had looked at another project that we had done, and I didn't think we got one there, so I thought maybe I was misremembering the interpretation. But that's fine, we've been there before for this. I personally don't understand why a detached garage in the third lot layer that is very common in Narberth, why we need a special exception for that, but it is what it is, and so we've done it before, and
We will add that to the list of things to look at when we update the code. Okay. I did ask Kevin the same question, like, I see where you found that, but why is that there? Kevin, do you have any recollection as to why that was there?
Yeah, I think that everything that's in that lot there, they're going to be by right. If you're actually following the code, top to bottom, subsection by right, surface parking, you kind of stop there in the third lot there. But then you go, this is where Chris, I think you got confused with, then you have to continue on the special exception section, and that's where then you need it for the parking garage on the third lot there. So I think it's supposed to say, front-facing parking garage is lot layer should probably special exception, but I think it's in the third lot layer, when I look into that.
yeah. So, I'm sorry, so the surface parking in the third lot layer is permitted by right, but the detached garage, which hides the car, is what requires the special exception.
Right. Yeah, I read that, I couldn't understand the rationale for it. It'll definitely be something we look at next time we update the code. Okay, so it sounds like, aside from those things, there's no real issues from the zoning point of view. Tim, can you give us the highlights of your review?
So the earlier highlight was kind of following the initial thing is just like, it would be nice to see some more setback measurements on there, particularly like around that garage and the rear setback, even though it is substantial. Like it'd be good to just see how far buildings are from lot lines. And then the main thing of our letter was, so this plan is not compliant with the Narberth comprehensive plan. The Narberth comprehensive plan calls for this lot to be a mix of mixed-use apartments, and does not specify any single-family home to be built on that lot. That being said, the comprehensive plan is again a guiding document. It is not a document of heavy enforcement. So the thing that we recommend is seeing if you want to continue to talk with the borough and explore the options of maybe we figured a duplex could probably fit on this property if you ever wanted to pursue that. Otherwise, if that's not feasible at this time, we'd encourage, however, the building is developed to be able to be, if a future user wants to convert it into a duplex, try to figure out a layout interiorly that would make it very easy. That was it.
I did look at the code to see what other uses were permitted. One of the questions that was posed to me was, whether it could be a duplex or some type of multifamily. And the multifamily code says that you need a 60-foot lot width, and we only have 75 here. So we wouldn't be able to convert, a single into it because we wouldn't have the required lot width unless that requirement was changed.
Yeah, only a two-family detached house could fit on that spot, so that was our only recommendation for that spot. So. But again, if sometimes that doesn't pencil, which is entirely understandable, but like I said, we'd encourage whatever the interior layouts become, that it be developed where if somebody wants to in the future, say, so make it into 2 units, they can do it easily. So. That was it.
Did you consider whether a two-family house like Tim is suggesting would be a viable proposition?
We did talk about it, and it's not desirable. I will admit we didn't fully vet the process, but just on initial review, it's not. Mostly based on the lot is not that big. If you see the size of the single and we're going to convert it to a two-family, if you wanted even a reasonable, like a similar amount of space, you'd have to get a lot bigger. And so the two-family is not as efficient.
Yes. I think not in the context of this application, but sometime in the future it might be interesting to have a conversation about what would make a house like that viable, particularly from the point of view of trying to sell it. I think that's something we're interested in learning more about. Okay, is there anything else, Tim, from your?
See if you can make it retrofitable eventually. That'd be pretty much it. If it obviously won't sell it this time, so say somebody wants to do an in-law unit, they can quickly.
All right, so let's, I'm sorry, anything from Borough Engineer's letter that is worth flagging for our meeting?
Most of the comments were pretty straightforward and pretty minor. There were a couple that we thought were notable. First being that the applicant is proposing a preliminary final subdivision plan. So skipping the preliminary plan would require approval from council. So we just wanted to note that and make sure that that was written down on the plan somewhere. The other being related to stormwater. The general runoff of the plan is consistent between the existing and proposed condition. The runoff is moving from east to west. However, in the proposed design, it looks like that the runoff will generally get channelized based off of the grading. So we added a note on here to try and remove that channelization and try to have more of a spread flow across the yard and into the neighboring properties.
What would the impact of channelization versus spread be? Like, if you didn't do that, what would the impact be?
If the property creates a condition where the water is channelizing, then the neighboring property owner may see, and it may appear that there's an increased runoff effect just because there's more water being pushed into one location as opposed to having that water be spread out into a more, sheet kind of flow condition. So if you can adjust the grading and adjust how that water is being discharged into the neighboring properties, then we think that would reduce concerns from neighbors.
Are there any other major comments?
No, that's it.
So what's your, let's set aside the preliminary final for a minute. Do you have a response to that?
We will address that. I guess as I said, all the roof areas and the most of the driveway from this point back are directed towards this inlet and then over to the stormwater system. So the channelized part is really this swale next to the garage. And what we were trying to do is just get positive drainage if for some reason that was blocked, or even just this little yard area, that we have positive drainage out to the rear property line. And so the lowest point is back in this rear. And we don't have a lot of room to get that lower grade out here. So I guess our solution is going to be we're going to have to raise this a little higher so that we don't show as much of a swale, and instead it is more of a sheet flow. So we will address that.
Okay. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so preliminary and final. Question I have is, I didn't double check the submission, but if this were to be considered a final application, is there anything in addition that would need to be included that's not there now in terms of the documentation that's required?
No, everything that's in our letter is all, once everything in our letter is addressed, we would deem it acceptable.
Okay. So, like, for example, some of the things in 12, those might be documentation that would be required either from the preliminary or final.
No, I'm sorry.
So, for example, some of the things you've listed in 12 would be required for either the preliminary or final. is one of the things we see here is people come to us for preliminary and final at the same time, but they've only given us a preliminary package, right? And so when I'm, I would say like, well, then why give a final approval? So that's what I'm trying to ask is like, is this really a package that meets the standards for final approval?
Yeah, we reviewed it kind of under the impression that it was going to be preliminary final, under the assumption that the preliminary would, that the preliminary plan would be waived. So we reviewed it under the, assuming that it was a preliminary final plan. So everything you see in the letter is everything that we would need addressed before it's deemed acceptable for us.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so we'll have planning commissioner questions or comments. We'll just, I'm sorry.
Could I?
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. So I just wanted to talk about one other in the engineer's letter. And so with that preliminary final, I did look in the code, and the code does have a minor plan, and we meet all the requirements in the first section of that, where it's not more than 2 units, we're not extending or widening any streets, there's no public improvements. There are like 4 things that we meet all those. But then there's a second section which basically limits minor plans to just lot line changes. So I think from that perspective, we do meet a typical project that could be approved in one step, with the exception that the code limits it to only a lot line change. So I did not submit a waiver request letter for that, but I will have to do.
I'm sorry, a waiver request letter for what?
So in order to get a waiver of the preliminary plan, I do need to submit a letter.
Right.
But I will do that. I did also want to talk about number 7 in the letter. It says the minimum pavement width of a single-family dwelling shall be 10 feet. The proposed driveway width is 9 feet. And so I've had some other projects in the borough with this where I think overall the borough would prefer to have less driveways, less impervious, less stormwater impact. The parking space requirement had changed. When it used to be 10 feet wide to now 9 feet wide, and so having a minimum of 10 feet wide driveway is really only going to add more impervious to this project. In this case, we are tight on setbacks with the new home. We have the 9-foot driveway, and we have an 8-foot pinch point for the driveway for the existing building. And so in order to get the width of 10 feet for each driveway, we would take off this little bump out at the back of the existing building. And so it is able to be accomplished with the new home that we have proposed, but that's what would be sacrificed to get it. And so given, I think, some of the intent of the borough and the effect it would have on this project, I think we'd like to request a waiver of that code section, assuming that it's applicable, given that we have the code required parking spaces by the frontage road. We have credit for an on-street spot, and so these are really just bonus parking spaces.
It's interesting. Some of our driveway dimensions in the zoning, but this is in the south now? This 10-foot?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So that would just be another waiver you would
Yes.
So that would be 2 waivers, a waiver of the preliminary plan, a waiver of the 10-foot minimum driveway, and a special exception. Do you have an objection to that?
No, I don't. He makes a good point that the having it 9 feet as opposed to 10 would reduce the impervious, so that's a good benefit. If he's able to submit a waiver for that, then I have no objections.
Okay, thanks for flagging that. Okay, so planning commissioner questions or comments? We go around this way. Any questions for us? Okay. No questions? No comments? Jim, do you have any?
Where's the water go? Stormwater go after it leaves the swale next to the garage?
The lowest point of the property is really this rear right corner or northwest corner of the property. You kind of see this 269 contour line that turns like that, or 268 like that. There's a little 267 in the corner. So Once it comes back past the garage, it goes back this way to the rear of the neighbor's property. This is LiDAR topography, so if we went to page 3, we could see what the topography is off of
Would you expect, excuse my voice, non-existent voice,
it.
would you expect the water to sheet off uniformly across that dimension? Or would it be concentrated?
So technically it'd be concentrated. Given the yard area that there is, I think the times that it would be concentrated would only be the very large storms. But we can make some adjustments to the swale to make it a little wider.
I think that would be kind to the neighbor.
I think in the end, it's going to go, and so the new garage is here, and so that swale is here. And then it's going to go right through there to the neighbor's driveway. So whether it goes through in a small spot like this, or it goes in a bigger spot like this, I don't think makes a practical difference to them. Because in the end, it's going to cross their property, go down the neighbor's driveway up to the next street over. But we'll make some adjustments.
How wide, did you consider sharing the driveway between the two units?
We did, we talked about it, but it's not confirmed.
I'm just curious, how wide would a driveway that was shared have to be, or should be? Is that written in the code in Saldo somewhere?
We're limited to 12 feet wide.
Okay. I mean, it's just a gut reaction that you'd have less asphalt if you were sharing a driveway, and that's a kind of common feature in Narberth also. I mean, I appreciate what the county is suggesting regarding the opportunity to make this into a multifamily house. I think that kind of continues the discussion of smaller units, more affordable units. It's no less payback for the developer to have 2 units in there, and it might make it more possible for the lower income or middle, income buyer. I mean, this is all just theoretical stuff at this point. I'm not saying I'm opposed to the plan, but ideally, less asphalt, shared garage in the back. It's just a nicer looking plan, and move the house more towards the north, which would be providing more airspace on the south side.
So if we played out, just quickly thinking off the top of my head, I haven't drawn this, but to get the 2 families, the house would want to be bigger, or at least from the owner's perspective, to get the amount of living space that we want. So then the house wants to get wider, except that you have limited frontage build out. You also have limited facade area, so the front of the house doesn't really want to be that wide. And I've had other projects where the borough doesn't like the width of the house that's going there. So then we're trying to get it a little wider. In order to get some more space, we're getting some more building in the back, and then we'd have maybe a 2-car garage back here that in order to turn into it and out of it, you need about 40 feet, which is basically the width of this lot. So although you'd have less impervious for the driveway coming down the middle, you'd have more impervious in the turnaround area and garage in the back, and then you really have no backyard. So there's kind of several reasons why that's not as desirable from the owner's perspective.
For whatever reason you just gave, I mean, I could come back and say that there's an equal number of reasons why it's better to share the driveway and share a garage. You're not having to turn around there anyway, so that's kind of a moot point. But again, I don't think you need to have a bigger building to have 2 smaller residences, dwelling units. That's the point I'm just trying to make, is that smaller dwelling units are desirable. That's all. For future reference, perhaps.
Hey, we talked about this on a lot of our projects.
Yeah.
That's why we need to have offline, non-application conversation. Heidi, we also looked at whether the historic district infill could come into play, but that does not apply to the 4A district. So that actually offers you a lot more tools and advantages. But this is 4A, so it doesn't apply.
Okay, I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, neither did we really. I
I
mean, we knew, we wrote
was
it.
part of that.
We
right?
knew, we wrote it, but we didn't realize it might actually make sense for 4A too, so.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else, Heidi? Thank you. Jennifer,
I have no comments.
Adam, any questions or comments?
Is it not possible to save the existing trees?
Most of the trees were all around 15.
This is a pretty substantial.
I can look at that one again. These more alighting the building envelope and where the driveway is. And they were kind of surrounding the existing pool. I can look at the one in front.
It's a multi-trunk specimen. It's under the power lines, so it's been pruned around the power lines, but the canopy is surprisingly vast. It's like a 30-foot wide canopy or 25-foot wide. It's big.
Might require the front sidewalk to be in a different place, but
Which is a requirement that the sidewalk go from the door to the street and not to the driveway. But I'll look at that.
Is that a requirement? I saw that. I was going to ask about it because, yeah, I mean, I noticed we have this like sidewalk parallel to the driveway. This kind of takes up the whole yard then, and it's a real, I don't know. Anyway,
Sirs, no.
you can walk up the driveway, right? I mean, probably unless you park on it.
You're
but
safe on
you're
shoveling.
supposed to.
I don't have a second in my house.
It is a zoning requirement that get to the zoning board.
I mean, I think a lot of these are in there because you want an accessible route, or you want to be able to walk to the house, deliver the mail. It's house-to-house mail, and so on. It's just so we're just maybe hitting the nail with the big hammer.
kind of expressed it in we'd rather see a sidewalk to the driveway. We'd rather see a shared driveway and a sidewalk and two driveways and no sidewalk.
But the practical outcome is 13 feet width instead of 10 or 9. So,
We'll keep working on it.
yeah.
Okay, so thank you for looking at that. Any other comments now?
No. Sorry.
I don't have any further questions or comments. I will say we don't really see many applications in the 4A district, and so it's been kind of interesting to see how our rules work there. And I think a lot of what our questions are about are kind of things where we'd like to fix the rules. But I don't have any further questions or comments. So before we discuss a recommendation, I noticed there's some folks in the public here. Did you come to comment on this application?
No, didn't come to make any comment.
Okay. So normally our practice is if someone's in the public and they would like to comment on an item on the agenda, we accept those comments during that agenda item. And then we accept general comments at the end. So I wanted to make sure if this was of interest to you, that you would have a chance to make a comment. Is there anyone on Zoom and online who, I can't tell.
I don't
who,
see
I
any.
don't see anyone.
Is there anyone online who would like to make a comment on this?
There's nobody else joined in the meeting.
Okay. All right, so we will close public comment on this agenda item. So our task tonight is to frame a recommendation to council for the council's action. I think the things to think about are whether we are prepared to recommend obviously approval, but more importantly preliminary and final approval to council, assuming that all of the matters that have been flagged and discussed are addressed, and assuming a special exception is applied for and warranted. So that's what I think we need to consider. Is there any other issues that anyone would like? Oh, actually, one other thing. Although I want to stress this is not related to our recommendation about this project, but I do think it would be important in our recommendation to council that we would like to look at ways to encourage more options for the housing types on these lots, and also to more strongly incentivize shared driveways where they are appropriate. It's not a matter that we feel is addressable at this point here, but it's something that we should flag for future consideration. So myself, those are the considerations I would put into a resolution. Is there any other thoughts about what a resolution the council should entertain?
Can we recommend that the requirement for the superfluous front walk be waived?
It's a zoning
We can't recommend that.
Kevin? You online, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm here. So I can barely hear.
If the planning commission wished to recommend that the sidewalk connection to the street were superfluous,
Because of the driveway.
what would the legal mechanism be? Because it's a tree.
It's a trade-off.
What would the legal mechanism be for excusing the applicant from that requirement?
I mean, assuming they're going to detached house, they just need to show variance.
Because it's a tree. Right.
Existing condition.
Right.
Of course, if they cut the tree down, then there won't be a tree, but yes.
I mean, technically, take a tree sheet or something like that, it's pretty complicated.
How does that suggestion strike you? Do you feel the sidewalk is extraneous? Or at least connecting it to the street instead of, say, the driveway? Would that be an advantage to you not to do that and just save that tree that's there?
My personal opinion is I agree. I don't think that you need a sidewalk there. However, it's a zoning issue, and I don't know that we could claim. I'm not sure. I don't want to say that I don't have an idea for a hardship, but something's not coming right to mind.
The tree.
It would be up to the zoning hearing board to determine if that was sufficient.
But on the other hand, it's not, like if they don't grant a variance, your proposal doesn't collapse, you can still do what you're proposing.
You could push the sidewalk over a little further, but I don't really love that. I prefer some separation of green spaces.
Just waste the front yard, it does. I hate to see that happen. It's a place for a flower garden, it's a place for an amenity that would be enjoyed by the entire neighborhood. You know, an increment of more front yard that wasn't concrete. It serves no purpose except to check a box in the zoning code. Yet another flaw in our zoning code. We are responsible for creating.
This guy here is being feeded. It's his idea.
If I could just talk off the top of my head with Kevin while he's online, there is a requirement for a walkway, but is there a requirement for width or type? And so if we put down flagstones that served as a walking path, but weren't as disruptive to roots, if that would meet the zoning requirements, so we wouldn't need a variance?
I think it would. I know there's no minimum requirements. And I know that somebody's going to put one parallel to the driveway. And we couldn't enforce it not to work. In other words, they would do like a 2-foot section that was delineated with a different material, but it actually wasn't wide enough to feasibly be a walkway that makes sense. We couldn't treat it down.
So, I think we could put some flagstone that would be wide enough to...
How wide is the walkway shown?
Right now it's, I think, 4 feet. what we typically do. And so if we did flagstone that was 2 feet wide and placed a little more on.
2 feet's a little narrow, but we definitely could go narrower than 4 feet for sure.
Yeah. If you want like a connection, say for a baby stroller, you could still put it to the driveway.
Yeah.
You'd probably do that from the rear anyway instead of going up the steps to.
Well, if you could look at that, we could appreciate that. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, take a look at it.
Yeah. Good question. Okay, so we'll add that to our
I'm
recommendation.
going out strong, man.
He's been sitting on that for years now.
18 years I've been wanting to say.
This is it, I know.
Does anyone have any concerns about recommending a final approval, assuming all the other matters are tied up, and not tied up, zipped up?
I don't see any reason to not make this a final approval because there's no major conversation stoppers here. These are minor things, with the exception of the sidewalk, which is major. So I don't see any reason to hold it up.
So, anyone else want to weigh in on that? Everyone else comfortable with the final as well? Okay, so I think the things we flagged are to continue working on the drainage in the rear, to minimize impact of water flow, the directional impact of water flow on the adjacent properties. Consider if there's a alternative to a linear concrete sidewalk that can provide access and allow for the existing tree to be maintained. Those are things to look at. Address concerns from the borough engineer and the zoning officer. Seek waivers for the driveway width for the final application and seek a special exception for the garage in the back. In the back. Is there anything like that? And then decide we would recommend the council that when the zoning is updated, we should look at issues of more housing, more options for smaller and multiple units on a lot like this, and more incentives for shared driveways. Did I capture anything? Anything anyone would like to add, or anything that concerns anyone about what I just enumerated? Adam, do you have anything?
No, just thinking architectural thoughts and homeowner thoughts.
Thinking architectural thoughts?
Yeah, like, you could consider a screen porch instead of a deck, but it's not really. As a
There's a 12-step plan for thinking architectural.
yes. Recovery, lifelong recovery.
Okay, all in favor of a resolution, a recommendation to council along the lines that I described? Any opposed to that? Okay. All right, well, thank you. We'll always find something to pick on, won't we? But thank you so much for coming and everything your questions.
You don't get paid if you don't do that.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
To cash my
good luck.
check.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So there's 2 items I'd also like to report on. One is the zoning recodification, and then we'll get back to 36 Roundbridge for a minute. Did I prepare my notes? So since we talked about this last, I have met with the borough staff, the solicitor, the zoning officer, Matt, Alan, Eric, and I also had a conversation with Michael Galdini to get their initial ideas on the way a reorganization of zoning code may be approached, and their reactions to the outline that I wrote and have been providing to us, over the summer. I wrote my notes down before I came here, but I didn't put them out, so it's all up on my computer. And I just want to give you a highlight of the suggestions they made. I think the main comment the staff made was that they have difficulty using the code because the rules are too scattered. You have to look in 3 or 4 places for the same kind of thing. And and that their goal is to make their reviews and make it easier for the applicants just to navigate what they need to find in order to know what the expectations are. Their suggestions were to try to focus on zoning districts as the entry points. That is actually the first chapter of our code, the zoning district, because they think that is what everyone understands best. Like, where is my lot and what district is it in and what can I do in that district? So they thought the district really, and they thought that we should try to pack as much in as we can into the rules for each district, so it was easy to find it, rather than sort of having to say, okay, so here's what I can do. District, I have a building of this type, this is what I have to do with this building type, but there's parking is in chapter 600, so here's what I can do with parking and the parking. They thought, try to migrate everything that's district specific to the code for each district, even if it feels longer or redundant. Actually, that's the way our pre-form-based code was written. It had like different parameters and rules, and in each district, all those rules were spelled out. And it would say what kind of uses are allowed in each district, what kind of building types are allowed in each district. The trick that would require further consideration is if we have specific rules for a building type, like a specific rule for apartment building, to figure out if it's really a district rule or a building type rule, that we sort of just have to look at the rules and figure that out. That topics like accessory buildings, fences, parking signs, each should be in their own chapter instead of consolidated into one chapter. That non-conforming situations, rather than, I think there's 3 different places in the zoning code where you learn how to approach different kinds of non-conforming situations. Those should all be consolidated to one place. And that there should be a new section, and although the code is supposed to be policy neutral, there are obviously things that will come up that we'll have to go back and say there's some policies we'd like to change. And one of them should be more clarity about what kinds of adjustments or exceptions might be made for properties that are in the historic district. As we've noted, particularly with Essex Avenue, sometimes more flexibility is needed, or just certain rules don't work the same way if you're talking about reusing using existing. I mean, our zoning code is sort of premised on the idea that people are building new buildings. But if people are reusing old buildings, the code doesn't work so well, and so that would be something to address. Remove substantive considerations from definitions and from the tables. The rules of zoning should not be in a table. They should be in the text of the code. And apparently in some places, the tables have very long footnotes that actually explain the rules. They should migrate to the code. And there is not, I think, 100% consensus on that all of the conditional uses and special exceptions should be in a separate area, but there should certainly be a table in that lists all the special exceptions and all the conditional uses. And again, moving into the substantive thing, it would be valuable to reevaluate them all and ask why they're there. For example, the garage and the third lot there. And if they're there, to make sure we have actual criteria, requirements, or conditions that need to be met if these things would happen. Sometimes we say, you just need a special exception to do this, but we don't actually say any particular criteria you have to present to get the special exception. So it's sort of like an extra step without qualitative, value. And then finally, put the definitions first. That was John Walco's suggestion. So those were, that's kind of a summary of the suggestion. Other things beyond the zoning code are to continue considering whether certain provisions are more appropriate in zoning, SADO, or elsewhere. For example, they noted that landscaping requirements are in the zoning code, the SADO, and the landscape code. And that maybe we should have them in 3 places. So that's more of a meta organization. So that is the feedback I got in conversations I had.
I was just
You
gonna
did
say-
this, which means that Sotheby's would be out 6.3 million, and all you would get is banana and duct tape.
I know, I was about to say, a big thing to do is that we could, like, if we are given enough time, we could, look at, existing, like, form-based codes around the country, because a lot of them have changed over time, so where they're a lot more picture-based and follow kind of the organization that you're recommending, but it can be spruced up in terms of, like, imagery. And you could easily ask MCPC design team to make
That was a
it look
comment
something-
also, but it was stressed that we should not regard drawings and pictures as having operative function.
Yes.
They are only illustrative.
But yeah, like, but more along the lines of I was thinking like South Bend or Allentown, zoning codes that are of more recent types that are very user-friendly, essentially. And that's kind of and that's always at least from a personal consumer zoning code, it's always nice to be able to look at something and quickly be able to discern it and know what's going on.
I'll bet they stood on our shoulders though,
Yes.
because your organization provided all the graphics that were in that first version of this. And it was breaking new ground. And a lot of people were concerned that it wasn't just a bunch of words. So it was breaking new ground. I'm really proud.
So I talked to Matt and the staff before it was announced that Matt and Alan were leaving. And what they had hoped was we would kind of get in a routine where whoever's working on this, either the CCC or planning commission members, would meet with the staff every month or two and like just do it very incrementally. But pretty much we're just going to wait, I think, for Maggie to start because I think we've heard Alan and Matt, but I think the new borough, especially since Maggie's been involved with the borough, she wrote our reports for a while. I think it would be good to kind of get her insight before we spend a lot of time. So I expect when she begins, that we will be doing further work besides just thinking about it. So it's my report.
Do you know when she starts?
I'm not sure. Does anyone know?
I think she starts the 20th officially.
20th of December?
January.
Of December.
December.
Okay, 18 days. So countdown to here. And then the last is 36 North. I've gotten a couple of inquiries about that. I've gotten inquiries about the land development situation and also the construction situation. And so with Kevin's help, Kevin and I have spoken and exchanged messages. I was able to ascertain that while a development of this nature would typically require a land development and subdivision application and review, Borough Council waived that requirement in the summer for this project. Let me see. I have
Via ordinance.
well,
Like
it's
via
a
resolution.
actually. It's a
Resolution.
resolution. I'm trying to, I didn't think about that either.
Well, while you're looking, and essentially what it says is that they have to file, the developer has to file an agreement among the properties on how to manage the parking supply so that the parking requirement is satisfied, I guess. But they're not required to go through this process to do it.
Right. The Borough Council does have the authority to waive that review. It's in the SAW, that the Borough Council can do that. I will note, though, that I think the resolution was presented to Council at its June meeting, the council voted on the resolution at its July meeting, and the planning commission was not contacted formally or informally for its input into this, even though a number of planning issues were discussed. If you go to the minutes of the council, they talked about parking and other matters that the planning commission would normally talk about, and our input was not sought. In that month that they had on the table, it was not forwarded to us for them. So I will note that. In regard to the construction that's going on now, I did go by today, observed it, and according to Kevin, what I saw, and Kevin will be looking into it to get some clarification from them as to what work is actually happening. I believe no permits have been issued.
Yeah, so what was happening at the lower level, supermarket used to be, they excavated all the they added some construction, it hasn't been poured yet. And the existing steel framing around the perimeter and installation was being inspected and replaced as needed. There was some water damage and smoke and fire damage from previous. So everything down in the basement hasn't really been touched other than excavation of the slab, so that's good there. There has been some framing in that upper floor. I'll be in touch with Mario on training inspections for that, just to make sure they're not shooting themselves in the foot. But I did review the plan, and although I didn't issue a permit, as long as they're following the plan that was submitted, there shouldn't be any issues. So I guess it depends on how much work's done, gonna dictate, how severe I have to come down.
Two other things, okay, there is some possibility that a harbor review would be required, is that correct?
Yeah, depending on what they decide to do, no matter what, I'm going to approach them saying they need a harbor review, which is actually why I can't release the building permits. They can change some of the exterior features to exclude themselves from needing a harbor review, but right now they would need a certificate of appropriateness, I believe, based on some of the work that was on these elevations.
Do you know the agenda for the harbor? So they're not on the agenda. Kevin, I also noticed, I didn't ask you this, but I noticed when I read the council's resolution, one of the conditions is that the applicant agrees that no building permits will be issued for the project until the public improvements, being those improvements listed in the October 14, 2019 Pannoni Opinion of Probable Cost Letters, are installed and approved by the borough for the ongoing 203 Haverford Avenue project and 100 Forest Avenue project. Do you understand what that reference is? I don't understand the reference.
Yeah, Eric and I went in detail with the Barnell and Tim 3 weeks ago. There's actually a Excel sheet that Pannoni prepares that identifies those public improvements line by line. And we kind of went over them and checked them all. Those are things like street lights, parking, striping the street, the trash enclosure, just the bike racks, things like that. So they're all done except for the trash enclosure in the back of 100 Forest.
Okay. So I assume those will have to be completed also before they get a permit.
Correct.
I think folks should read this because it's very interesting. It also refers to special inspections of an independent special inspector for 203 Haverford, at least for the masonry work.
It was to remediate the problem. It seemed to me like it was to remediate the masonry problems
Right.
to satisfaction.
Right.
Is that done?
Do they have a third-party inspector, inspection agency for the masonry?
They're different than
I'm sorry,
come in and inspect the work, and that's why I don't know if some of you saw some of those portions were removed. They had to inspect some of the brick ties, the spacing, and the materials that they were using, the grout types, and they signed off on that.
As of note, council requested that the applicant carry through our preference for no natural gas hookups in apartments, which is, part of the green building bonus, but how can agree to include that feature in this building as well. It's not pertinent to the permits, but I'm just noting that. The exterior features shall remain substantially unchanged, no building additions, changes in footprint, no additional structures. So there's 11 conditions that
Are there drawings available?
Oh, yeah, I sent them around. I printed out a few of them. I can send them again to you. I know I sent them.
Do you know when you sent them?
I don't. I could check. I can easily send them to you again.
Okay.
Is this project open for public questions or comments?
I'll, when we're done, I'll ask you if you'd like to make any comments. Sure. The answer is yes, but it's just in a minute.
Okay,
So, Kevin, thank you so much for looking into this. I think our main concern, the other thing Kevin and I spoke about is there are a lot of very small technical details about the building's compliance with, the apartment building type and setbacks and things like that. But those are usually handled by acknowledging that these are non-conformities because it's an existing building, it's a renovation of an existing building, and so certain aspects of our rules about how apartment facades should be designed don't apply because it's a pre-existing condition in the building. That, by the way, is one of the things we might clear up in the code about how those rules work when an applicant is renovating a building or reusing a building as opposed to building a new building.
So the openings are what the openings are in the building.
Right.
And if they change them, then it's a hard question.
Correct. But we don't ask someone who's renovating a building to redesign the facade so it meets our apartment building requirements.
Right, we want to promote adaptive
Right.
reuse as much as
Right.
possible.
And so the way that's handled from the zoning point of view, it's sort of an existing non-conformity. And Kevin, I'm assuming all that gets documented when you issue the zoning permit, like all the things that you are listing as non-conformities, so there's a documentation of that.
Not necessarily. Thing that would be expressly written in my permit program should be some reference to the cross-access agreement with the parking counts. I think the building is touched, probably be in there.
Yeah. I will say that is my one concern is the parking counts. I think I'm not concerned that they can meet the parking counts, but I feel like the parking calculations should be more transparent than they've been. I remember when we asked the applicant about this, when we were approving 230 Haverford. I don't ever feel like we got a straight answer about that. How many spots are attributed to the residents, how many to the business, how many are to the public, how you handle the residential parking, what are the real numbers for each and how will it be used. So I think personally that is the one thing I wish we could see more documentation on. Had we been able to weigh in on that, I think we would have requested that. But it's not part of this. The council was assured, and the records say that because of the shared parking requirements, that there would be adequate parking. So basically what they're doing is saying they can use shared parking between the new building, I guess, and the building already approved, and so it changes the parking calculations. But to me, it's all like junk thing.
That's a good question.
It's not written down.
Can I ask a question about the building itself?
Yeah.
And do we know when modifications were made to it and what it looked like before 1945?
I don't think we know.
I mean, I think that would be a question for the applicant to document or show, or somehow get evidence that, maybe Kevin knows what changes have occurred to the building. And those existing openings are not original when they were put in. I mean, it was a utility building, it was a warehouse where the oil company wouldn't have had those big windows. And the entrance and the stairways and the elevator. I'm just curious about how far of a hard issue, how much of a hard issue.
Well, personally, I wouldn't assume that, I mean, anyway, never mind. Yep.
So it's a question. Some evidence would be helpful. I don't know what we have in the way of evidence. Pictures, photographs, drawings. Do you know, Kevin, if there's anything about the building's earlier life?
Other than when I just covered the original building, just kind of everything's formed up and into everything, but our work with the borough was not very great prior to 2016. So we had a full company coming in, digitally scan all of our archives and rename them. So it's worth a shot just searching the address or anyone knows that had like a name of the building was there. We can look it up that way.
It was McCandless Fuel, and it was garages, I think, for their trucks. So some of the windows may be taking the place of former garage openings.
Yeah, if you want to send me an email, making requests for any plans related to that project, you can send them off to a third party scanning company.
Friends of Narberth History may have something.
They may,
Yeah, just random photographs.
yeah.
So let's take public comment. This will be a great time. So first off, welcome.
Thanks.
If you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Luke Petro. This is Mary Beth Melso. We both live just across the street from 36 North Harvard Avenue. And we are just curious if the completion of the bridge is at all tied to the application of this project, or if those two are in any way related.
Nobody knows about the completion of the bridge.
What bridge?
I can answer that. It is in the hands of bureaucrats,
Gotcha.
multiple bureaucrats,
They're not related.
not related.
As far as we know, there's no.
They're
Nor
not
does
related.
anybody in Narberth, despite what it says every month in the newsletter, does anybody have any idea?
My understanding is that utility work for the bridge is going to start at the beginning of 2026, and it's probably about a year.
2026?
Oh my gosh.
Did you say
Yeah,
26?
so it's about a year, just the utility work related to the project, and I think the bridge itself's 4 or 5 years.
Oh,
So, you know,
It's 4 or 5 years.
it's so far out
Marion Bridge took
that
about, what, 18 months?
It's not a question of difficulty. It's a question of paper chase.
yeah,
So, I think the answer is that there's not a kind of connection that like the bridge has to be done because the property goes ahead. And I apologize for the cynicism you're hearing from the bridge, but every time we ask about it, we're taken aback by what's supposed to happen.
It's always 4
Did you
years
have other
away.
questions you wanted to ask?
No, that was the only question I was about.
we hope you haven't sat here all night waiting for a definitive answer about the bridge.
No, that's no problem. Personally, I kind of appreciate that we can walk across the bridge. It's a really nice pedestrian walk right now, and we live in the apartments that are very close to the train station right now, so it keeps that area quite quiet, except it would potentially impact the developer of that property. They lose potential traffic, so I was just curious.
Well, they want to build apartments as well.
On that,
The little gym will be apartments.
There'll be 8 apartments in that building.
really,
Right. And there'll be, what, 21 apartments along Hartford Avenue, something like that.
Over top of stores.
Over
though.
top of stores. There'll be more there than there is now. But, you know, we could bet which will be done first.
We have an employee at Panoni here tonight.
All right.
After the meeting.
He doesn't know a heck of a lot more than we do.
You can't know any less, so,
Right.
anyway.
Are there any questions or comments about any of these matters, or can we ask for adjournment? I just want to set that record tonight.
Wow.
Is there anything else anyone would like to discuss about these things? Is there anything on your mind?
I would like to move to adjourn.
Okay. All right, we have a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned at 8:23, and I do believe that is a record. So. Thank you all for pulling your weight tonight.
Must be December.